small little seminars within this concept that we want to educate you. We want to help you to understand better how to structure the projects, how to plan the budget, so that we all together become stronger and more efficient. Laurent?
Thank you, Dana, and welcome to everyone who joined us for the second part of the day. So we are a bit later than expected, and I hope that it won't cause any issue and you will enjoy the time together. Today we will be two of us to present. I will be with Kema. But this is not only our work, it's the consolidation of teamwork, some inputs from Mylinda Pilinci, who is a counselor in our team. Also, Theo Torbatoglu was involved. The idea of this is that we have regular meetings together and that we can help to contribute to the development of federations who need it, of course. Some of us, they have a long experience of federation management, projects, everything. So they will not be the main target, but our idea is to support federations in general. So I don't know if you had a look at the shared slide, which was supposed to stay for a while during a break. So any idea why we chose to put those three pictures on a single slide together? What do they have in common? Actually, they are all three the result of projects, like the tournament London 1851, a chess clock, which is a device, or a TV series. They are all three the result of a project, and this is the topic of our session today. We'll spend 45 minutes together, and the idea how we position those sessions is that we want to be simple and useful. So, I mean, thank you. We may have quite long experience in project management and so on, without necessarily using the official PMO or PMI or whatever institution in charge of project management. That's not important for us in the scope today. The important is to share some practices, some tools, some illustrations, which will make your processes easier. So in the session today, aside from the theory, which was one project which we had the opportunity to lead in the Arbiters Commission in FIDE, which was the training for arbiters and for arbiters in online and hybrid tournaments, which happened during the pandemic. And we hope this will help you have a more concrete illustration if you are not so familiar with project management. So what is project management? Basically, it's the idea of not just going without a plan to your targets, but really use some processes, methods, tools in order to reach your goals. There are many words on this slide. Maybe the blue box at the bottom is the most meaningful one. If you want to run a project without a plan, it's like when you play a chess game without making a plan. So, of course, you can do some moves, but maybe you will lose a piece very quickly, you will get checkmated and so on. While if you have a plan, if your opponent is stronger, of course, you will win, but you may have better chances of success in general. So, Kema, would you like to tell us what a project is in general?
Yeah, project is a some action endeavor undertaken to have finally some product, service, or result. So the characteristics of a well-planned project is to have a clear start and end. Yeah, it's something new to create. We need to to have a project, to have a well-planned project, you need to have a definite boundaries. And yeah, it's not business as usual.
Yeah, that's the main point, that it's not business as usual. I mean, even if your activities, and we can add the next slide, even if your activities are sometimes complex, it doesn't mean that they are a project. And the importance is that you have a start, an end, sorry, and that you have clarified what you will cover, what you don't accept to cover as part of the project. All this for better clarity and for you to be better positioned to reach success in general. So what we propose is that for the next ones, just to get familiar with this this idea of, is it a project or is it business as usual? We chose a few examples, like for instance, organizing the annual General Assembly of the Federation. I guess it's obvious for everyone. This is business as usual, yeah? Then host a continental championship. Is it something like routine or a project? Maybe it happens only once in the story of your in the history of your federation. This is the project. Okay, the same for calculate the national rating. Maybe it's very complex and you have plenty of data to collect, a lot of actors concerned, but this is just a usual process. Contrary to the fact of changing, for instance, the rating system for your federation. And finally, we have plenty of them in the projects submitted for the PDC funding. Introduce chess in schools. This can be a project. So far, everything's fine. Okay. So how is the life cycle of a project? I guess, okay, it's quite small on the screen, but I guess many of us, we are very happy with the blue arrow here, like execute the project. I need to run my tournament and so on and so on. But actually, this is not the only component of a project. And what we want to see today is the importance of all the 5 steps that usually exist in a project, from the initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, and closure of the project. If you make the effort to cover all 5, then this will probably make your life easier. Although sometimes if you're not used to cover some of the steps, you would have to learn about them. And that's why we are together today. First phase, the project initiation. So we start with an idea. Okay, I would like to organize a training because there is a need. The chess community now is in the pandemic. I remind you that our registration is about training arbiters during the pandemic. We need to better understand how it works with online and so on. So I have an idea, but is this enough to run a project? Maybe not. We would need to clarify what the exact target will be. What will be? Is it only online? Do we also cover hybrids? Do we go for over-the-board tournaments and things like that? So what we accept to cover, what is not covered. And of course, in order to execute a project, you need also some resources. So you will have stakeholders to identify, those from inside the team, but also those who are our clients, the players, the arbiters, or whoever can be impacted by a chess project, okay? So the first step, which is very important, is to determine the goal. So as we said, having an idea is already a very good start, but it is definitely not enough to start the project. You need to have better defined goals. So I guess if anyone ever had a meeting or a training on chess, not on chess, on project management, you heard about SMART goals. Like this is an acronym to help us to have better defined goals. in our context. Again, we take the example of this training program. We want specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to the context and time-bound objective. For instance, if I say I want to organize a hybrid and online training, this is much more specific than just having the idea of educating arbiters. In terms of measurement of the goals, maybe it makes sense that I say we want sessions from 20 to 30 people, because below 20, it would not be economically viable. And above 30, then it's the quality of the training which would not correspond to the expectations. So that's also something important to specify what measurable goals we have. Achievable, if we want people to understand the concepts enough, maybe in half an hour, it's not enough. And so we decided 8 hours for the basic level and 8 hours for the advanced level. Relevant, we already said in the introduction, we decided to go for it because this was the pandemic and that was a trigger for such needs. And as I did not mention about the size of the project, but the idea was to cover every federation and sponsor 2 of them through the FIDE Development Fund, plus open to anybody who was interested. So at the end, we touched 800 arbiters. It's not something we did in 2 minutes. Huh? So the idea was to make a good program. We had, let's say, a reasonable start date within 6 weeks.
Let me just add here with that the pitch meetings that PDC team initiated this year with federations is a good example of collecting this kind of information, which probably not easy to write, let's say, in the Appendix B that we require. So after the pitch meetings, we enlighten federations that in the Appendix B, we need concrete, focused goals that Laurent just mentioned here.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Kema. Indeed. Okay, we took the time to prepare this presentation and we thought a long time about what would be meaningful and so on. Sometimes it's better when you have the help, an external help. So when we have this exchange during the meetings, it indeed helps asking questions and getting answers which would be interesting. Kema, would you tell us about the different actors which are involved?
Yeah, the stakeholders of the project can be internal and external. Internal is your project team, probably federation team, a project manager who is the lead of the project, let's say, and a sponsor who provides resources. No, the federation seeks for resources, provides seeks for funding, provides resources, and externally, these are those partners, let's say, stakeholders that you work with, as Laurent mentioned. It's players, us, like as sponsors of funding, and Ministry of Sports and government.
Exactly. That's important for you at this stage to understand what are the different interactions you may have with them. I mean, if we take the example, for instance, of PDC, you are planning your project and you want to request funding. So in our context, you will present the project somehow on a high level. We don't need to know the lowest details, but we need some key elements which we will see a bit later. If you are dealing with your project team, they need instructions, clear goals at their level on what you would expect from them to reach the ultimate goal, which is the conclusion of your project, whether it is an event that you organize, a training, implementing a new chess club or whatever. So one other item which is important in the life of a project, and I will probably repeat it several times during the session, it's very important that you adapt to your context. I mean, if you're doing something pretty simple, You don't need to implement some rocket science plans which take more time than the execution of the project, of course. But let's say, theoretically speaking, it's interesting to know that if you have a project of reasonable size, it can be interesting to set up what we call a project charter. A project charter, this is a document, and it materializes the existence of the project. So it will be like an ID card of the project. What's the title, description, what are the goals? It goes even to who is the project leader, who are the people in the team, such kind of elements which kind of make a full description, definition of your project. If we want to make a small parallel, we can advertise the Appendix B, which you use when you apply for funding in FIDE. This is not exactly a project charter, but this is close to it. We find similar kinds of information inside of it, and that can be very helpful if you take the habit in any kind of projects to formalize where you want to go. Okay, I just put the first page here, but on the subsequent pages, you have the budget, you have the KPIs and other elements which are relevant. Okay, that next slide is just also an illustration. That's what we did during that project. We did not make a complicated project charter. The team involved was the usual team from the Commission. So we did not formalize it so much, but we had to highlight important elements because we wanted to share them with PDC at that time. We were the Arbiters Commission. We thought, okay, we have an idea to spread quickly the knowledge and good practices for arbiters online. So we proposed that we sponsor 2 people per federation. And we can't just come to Sonja, who was my predecessor, then and say, hey, please support, and without giving any details. So we prepared this document in order to help understand what the context was, what the vision is, what's the actual execution is expected to be, and so on, to give some details to get proper support for the project. So that's it for the initial phase about initiation of the project. You can see that at that phase of the project, we did not go into many details. We gave, okay, pretty deep ideas on what we wanted to do, but the detailed planning or any kind of execution steps, they were not yet dealt at that time. I mean, if we did not get the support, maybe we would say, okay, we won't have the success and we don't actually start. And we will speak better about this when we speak about the budgeting in the second session later. But yeah, it's good that you put your resources where they are useful. I mean, if you start executing and then you learn, but my God, I can't finish because I will never get the money. Maybe it was not even necessary to start. So that's why step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5 are important to cover in the proper sequence. So second step is our project planning. So we come into more details at that moment, and again, you will project what the different areas of the project are, what kind of workload you would have to cover your different tasks. You see, we are starting to use more concrete vocabulary about execution. So the planning is like the preparation for execution. And again, when you do your planning, it's very good that you have a way or another to know, to materialize where you want to go. So you will schedule some tasks, etc. But you may do it, okay, maybe I exaggerate if I say you may do it on the paper, because nowadays almost everybody has a computer. So you may do it on a spreadsheet, for instance, if it's a reasonable size project. Afterwards, if you have a much more complex projects where you have a lot of dependencies, meaning that if you need to wait for one task to start, that one or many others are finished, and you need to well monitor and understand about these dependencies, maybe at that stage you would rather go for a more powerful project management tool. But for most of our projects, we can just deal with it with a spreadsheet and, let's say, common sense and a few ideas on what is useful to cover.
So to sum up, you just split the project into smaller units to handle easily, to have a project roadmap and calendar with tasks. Okay. Speaking about splitting the project into smaller units, the work breakdown structure is a must to have at the second phase of the project planning. You distribute the tasks and into smaller units like these chunks, and you understand what directions and what work each group or each team or each unit shall cover.
Yes, exactly. And okay, again, this one has many squares on the slide. I hope it's not too small. But what I like with this one is that it is not much complicated. You see, it looks like an organizational chart, and you split your project. And what can be interesting is that in front of each chunk or smaller parts, you can put who is in charge of this. Then you have a visual. Okay, I know I'm someone very much visual. Maybe it's not the case of everybody, but here you have very easily visual supervision of your project, like a map of your project, and that's very useful in order to identify what are the different tasks, what are the different sub-projects that you may need to work on. So now we have defined what are the different components of the projects. Maybe it's time to think about, okay, how do I put them in proper sequence so that I may reach my goal of training my 800 arbiters. Okay, so in this example, you can see this is just a plain spreadsheet formatted like a calendar. It's every column is a week, or no, it's a day, sorry. Whenever we have the yellow, it's the weekends and so on. So it's from March until July in 2021. And we have on a single view different aspects which can be useful for us in the project. In this project, who are some of the stakeholders? We have the lecturers, the people who will train the audience. So at the top, we just put our colleagues, lecturers, and if they have any constraints of availability. Then in the middle, we have like project aspects. Like, as you can see, it's not rocket science, just a few important steps, like contacting the federations, informing them about the initiative, collecting the subscription of participants, collecting the names that they propose for the sponsorship, because we said that we cover two of each federation's arbiters, and then preparing the technical aspects like the curriculum, the technical platform, and so on. And finally, when we reach, let's say, the execution steps of each session, every time 4 days, then we have the planning for the entire project. The next one, again, is just like an illustration of kind of simple things. It's good to make a project, to train the people, but it's also good to make the community aware of what we are doing. It promotes, let's say, the product that we created, this project, this training program, sorry, and it gives visibility, recognition to the fact that that IPSDC supported, and so on. So A very simple communication plan, but can be just with 3 columns. Like, when do you want to communicate? About what? And let's say why. You decide about the content. If you have several platforms, we decided here to have only communication on the website and post on the Facebook as an echo of the website. So the main media was the website. If you have several ways to communicate, like either through your own social media and so on, or through a journalist or whoever, you can add another column, which is just which channel you want to use. So now we reach the one which we are probably the most familiar with, about the execution. You want to execute something, Kemal?
This is my favorite part. This is operation phase of the project execution. So after you have done all the planning, preparation, dissemination, every chunk, every team has worked out their the things that they had to. You are one day before the project starts, so it's the high time to do the actual work and to implement the project. So what is very important here is that you have collaborative tools, you communicate, you have daily briefings, debrief meetings, you have emails, you have group chats to chat about some urgent issues. You make sure that you have visibility of the various components of the project as well. And of course, as a leader, you monitor the progress of the project every minute, second, and day.
Yes, and maybe again, this slide you would decide, depending on the complexity of your project, if it's necessary to document some things more or less. But I would say, generally speaking, make sure that you secure your deliverables for the project. So here we have this DDD, like define your deliverables. In our context, we want a 4 × 2 hour training session. Describe the individual chunks. So describe each of them, like first lecture is the introduction, then we have about regulations and so on. And finally, detail to facilitate the execution. So here, this was one of the, let's say, connection between the architecture of the project and the execution. Like the lecturers, they would have this from the education team. You need to prepare your lectures so that they cover this, that item. So in the context of a training, this looks like this, but you would have similar things about organizing an event. Like, okay, I want to make sure that we invite someone for the protocol of first move at the start of the game, that we have someone in charge of logistics who would have to make sure that we have the material, chess clocks, score sheets, whatever related to the good success of the event. So again, depending on your taste, on your goals, you may decide whatever tool, but it's good that you make sure to secure the deliverables of the project. And the phase 3, even though on the previous slide you had phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in sequence, this was not 100% accurate. I would say from the moment you start executing, it's important to start monitoring. I mean, it's like in modern cars, we all have, is it called speedometer? To measure the speed, yeah? So when you start the engine and you start driving, you like to know at which speed you're progressing. So it's the same for the project. From the moment you execute, it's very good that you understand if you're ready because you already ordered all the score sheets and things like that. This is a task you don't need to do anymore. So project monitoring you will follow your plan, your tasks, and it's important that you understand if some tasks are at risk, then you might need help if it's one of your tasks, or if you are just supervising the project and someone else is working on the task, maybe you want to offer your help to make sure that you don't miss an intermediate target of the projects. And then it's up to you what is the most meaningful to monitor your project. And we will speak in the next slides about KPIs or such concepts. Yeah, it's really up to you to know what's the good monitoring aspects that will help you understand if you are on track or if you need some help, some extra efforts. So, for instance, this is how we decided to follow the progress. We had many sessions in total, I think 30 or something. This was for the basic course. So we had almost 20 sessions like this. As I said, our objective was to have between 20 and 30 participants in each of the sessions. So this is a way for us to measure that we are on track. Some of them, they had slightly more, like 31, 32, and so on. And then, of course, we want to follow if our project is viable compared to the budget we expected. So we had a target to be balanced between the income which came either from FIDE as a sponsorship from PDC or from federations. Some of the federations, they said, okay, we pay for our students. And some other federations, they said, no, the students register themselves and they pay themselves. So this is a way for us to track how it was covered. And so between the income and the expenses, at the end of the day, we reached like plus 60 euro out of almost 15,000, which is pretty close to the initial target that we had expected, that we had defined. I see that there are some questions in the chat, not many. Is there any guide for this type of projects or previous projects that have been accepted to be able to apply? This is related to doctoral studies. I think this is pretty specific. Maybe we can speak about it outside of this because probably more related to PDC questions. Can mental health projects be carried out of high performance players? Yeah, I guess from the moment you have an idea of projects, and then you make it a bit more concrete about what would be your specific goal. That's quite interesting about the question. Can mental health projects be carried out? Okay, yes. But this is for the moment closer to an idea than to a project based on what we expressed about our SMART goals. So I would advise you reflect about your goal that you have in mind, and then from there, if you need some support from I don't know your government or from PDC, if it's among the sponsored the possibly sponsored areas, we will evaluate. And as mentioned, the way we evaluate is that we receive Appendix B, which is the funding request. So I think we will speak again about this kind of things before the end of the session. You will have to adapt to the expectations of your stakeholders, especially the ones who are funding you. Sometimes they have some formalism to follow. Just to have another illustration of maybe other ways to follow whether your project is successful, is to monitor some KPIs, so key performance indicators. In our example, we wanted to have at least 2 arbiters per federation, which would be sponsored by the development fund. And then we followed, exactly this concept. Like we had 195 federations, which means 390 slots in the scope. And did we attain the target or not? I think at the end we had a good okay. We also had some federations coming with 10, 15 people. So on average, for sure, we went far above this 390. But we had a fairly good also number of federations which sent arbiters, and this was one of the important elements of monitoring for success. Are we closing the project, phase 5?
Yes, we're closing the projects, and when deliverables are finished, when the final outputs get together, get collected, let's say, clear, we need to make the final report, either internal financial for your auditors or for the sponsors if needed. And which is not less important is a reflection meeting where you share together with your team on the challenges, issues, of course, good sides of the projects, but challenges and problems are really more important to get fixated, not to face in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very important point. Why do we consider it's very important to close properly the project? Is that basically the same when you study chess. I mean, you play a game, you win, you lose, you draw. Okay. At the end, what do? You make the analysis with your partner. Okay. And what is the use of making this analysis of the game? Okay, you exchange ideas, etc. The feeling about the game, but for yourself, what's the benefit afterwards? You learn something. Oh, I missed these tactics. I dominated because of this feature of my play during this game and so on. This is the same concept here. Invest the time when you finish your project to have this reflection meeting with the team, at least with the team, with your colleagues who worked on the project, to understand what you can do better, what you learned, what experience you can capitalize on for your future projects. Okay. Then, of course, we speak about the conclusion of the project. You would be expected to make a final report. So what's the final report? For yourself, as we said, one of the main features is that you would conclude properly what you learned, etc. But also, when there is money involved, it's good that you can report about the usage of the money and how much did the project cost you, or how much did you get from the project. And basically, in some cases, like when you get funding, for instance, from PDC or maybe from your government as well, what will happen is that we tell you, yeah, we are very happy to support you, but at the end, you need to justify the usage of the funds. It's not like Santa Claus giving you a gift. We are supporting the development of chess, and we want to see how the development of chess materialized through the project. So whether it's PDC, whether it's your government, there will be maybe some predefined templates that you need to use. So for the reporting, here on this slide, we illustrate it through the final report from PDC, but it can be different formats. And I would advise, in general, okay, you can see that we are pretty friendly in PDC, but Alan is with us today, so he's not very happy if we don't receive reports as a member of the verification commission. So on a more serious note, this is like a contract. So you get a funding, it's part of the contract to send the report. And of course, it's much better when the requester sends the report on time using the proper documents. Then we, of course, save a lot of time because we don't have to deal only with one report, but maybe with 60, 80, 100. And if they are all formalized properly, it's much easier for us to work on them. And when we see them arrive with the proper format and on time, it's also a more positive experience for the future, saying, okay, oh yeah, we saw the report was just perfect. Whatever we needed was inside. We did not need to ask 3 times, and that's very positive in general. So we are already reaching the last slide of this first module on project management. I would like to highlight really 3 main ideas. And yeah, I see that my French autocorrect played with me with the accent on execution. So consider really the project from A to Z. Don't limit yourself to phase number 3, execution. Invest some time on the initiation, really the good definition of your project plan. Of course, what we did not highlight is that you may use different methodologies for your projects. I would say in many of the cases, the common sense methodology is fairly good when you're dealing with a pretty small project. And this is not a problem. You don't need to implement complicated things. What you need to put in place are things which are useful for you for the success of your project. And so in some cases, you don't make a lot of planning ahead, but you say, okay, every week we progress. We make one loop, we make a little deliverable for next week, and then next week another one, another one, another one. So you need to adapt to your project methodology, but generally speaking, don't forget any of the steps, and absolutely avoid forgetting to report if you got some funding expecting a report. This is a subliminal message. The second one anticipates the formalization of your projects. I mean, even if your project is, we are now in December, your project is for June, but you already know what you want to do. So why would you wait for the 31st of May to start phase 1 and 2? It's good. The more time you have, the more your brain can be fresh on the topic, and you can be a bit relaxed about the preparation of your project. It's much better if you have 2, 3, 4 weeks to think about how will I really formulate my ideas, my objectives, as we mentioned, and then submit my request. And then I still have 4 months to prepare the execution. From the moment I requested money, if we take again the example of PDC funding, I requested money in advance. Okay. If we are happy on the PDC side, we won't wait that you finish the project to submit the money. So it's also good for your cash for the project. So don't wait for the last moments to formalize your project. And again, okay, this one I said it already several times. Really, don't feel any kind of pressure about using. I must use a project charter. I must use this format of tool. No, you don't have to. Just try to understand which one is appropriate for your context and go on with it. Are there any questions or comments or some things that you would like to share about project management in general? First of all, maybe was it clear what we presented and useful for you? Okay, no comments. Gemma, you want to add something?
No, if no question. Yeah, someone will say.
Ali?
We think it will be very good if you see anyway, send us all of support documents in French, so we can understand very fluently about that. So thanks for joining. It's very important for us because we must think about planning and development of that project. So you can help us and as in French all of the support documents, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. That's a good question. I think it can be interesting to get in touch with the IDF, the French-speaking association, because I know that in some cases they translate. Yeah, we should try to consider if there is some will to have the content. Yeah, of course, today we are speaking English because this is the common language. But if we have some colleagues who can present this in French, in Spanish, Arabic, or other languages, that can be interesting to go. Yeah.
All right, I understand that. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a question or comment from Paul in the chat. Yeah, indeed. I think we can improve the communication in general about the timeline for receiving funds. This is not directly related to the training now, but yeah, we have some actions in progress to streamline the funding process in general. Any other questions?